Hey guys, my name's Ryan Peters and today I'm going to show you the easiest way to set up and mix in Dolby Atmos for Cubase 12 Pro. I'm not going to get into what Dolby Atmos is and how it works and all that type of stuff. I'm just going to make the quickest video possible on how to mix in Dolby Atmos in Cubase. Now this only works in Cubase and maybe Nuendo, don't quote me, because I'm not super familiar with Nuendo. I know there's some different things, but I'm not going to go down that path. But the way Cubase handles Dolby Atmos is different to, say, Pro Tools or any other DAW, because with that you have to have an external renderer. With Cubase 12 Pro, the actual renderer is built into Cubase, which is really good, because if you have Cubase Pro, then you can mix in Atmos. So let's get into it. So I've got a session here, just a really quick, I've done a really quick mix on it, nothing too fancy, just a bit of volume leveling, a little bit of panning, not much. I'm not really fussed on that. I'm really just wanting this as an example of how to mix in Atmos. So a quick play of this, it's a big band piece by the Abletones Big Band. There will be the link in the description of where you can get these stems, because they aren't mine, I don't own them, I'm just using for educational purposes. So have a quick listen and I'll play like 10 seconds. Cool, really cool piece. We're just using this as an example, just because I had it already downloaded and have used it in the past for different things of my own own practice. So some people can find Atmos fairly complicated. I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible and straight to the point. So the first thing you need to do is press F4 on Cubase or open up your audio connections and get an output here. Make sure you have output selected, an output of what you have. Now Atmos can go all the way up to 7.1.4 if you're using Cubase, which is what I've got. I've got ceiling speakers and a sub, or an LFE in this case, and then 7 surround speakers. You can do this on stereo. So if you have headphones or just stereo speakers, you're going to want a stereo out, because that's just 2 channels. If you have more than that, you're just going to want to add a bus and select that, how many you've got, and then right click and just go set as main mix. I'm assuming most people who are watching this are going to have that and not have an elaborate speaker setup, so just do that for this case and leave that there. If you set it up with control room, you can do that. If not, just set your outputs and have that working as normal. Nothing too fancy there. I want to make it clear though, the stereo out does not get touched through this. You leave that at 0. I don't know why that is 0.40. Leave it at 0. Do not put any inserts, do not put any sends, anything like that. Keep the stereo out as nothing, because we are going to have other things that will affect and alter. Okay, at this point we should have our stereo out, and all these audio tracks are being sent to the stereo out. Pretty simple at this point. The next thing we need to do is right click, go add group track, and call this your Atmos out. That will be a 7.1.4 configuration no matter what, even if you have stereo, but it is going to stereo out. And we'll just put that there. The next thing we're going to do is add another group track. This is going to call Atmos bed, and this is going to be 7.1.2. That is very important. Make sure you have that set to that, and then that is going to the Atmos out. So pretty simple at this point. We have our Atmos bed, which is going to be our main Atmos place, going to the stereo out, and then the Atmos bed is going to the Atmos out. That's really important. Really simple. Might sound a bit confusing, but go back and rewind. The next thing we are going to do is open up our project and then ADM authoring for Dolby Atmos. This window here communicates with Cubase and Atmos and kind of tells everything where it's going. Okay, so we'll get to that actually a little bit later, but on our Atmos out, we're going to add an insert of the Atmos renderer. So you can see here, this is what it should look like. Other than the down mix should be in binaural or 2.1, or if you do have a 5.1 system or a 7.1 or a 5.1, whatever, should be selected to that. Okay, you can always down mix. So if you have a 7.14 system at home, you can down mix to whatever. Okay, I'd recommend it so you can check. If you have a stereo headphones or stereo speakers, you can only go with 2.0 or binaural. Okay, for this one we're going to go binaural just so we can hear it around us, and you know that's the cool thing about Atmos, it has binaural sound. If yours does not look like this, if your window has a little red exclamation mark in the middle, there is a few issues, but the main one is that your audio interface, I'll just quickly show you here, this is mine, I use Audient. Your audio interface ASIO buffer size is not set to 512 samples. So really important that it is set to that. If it is still showing up with the red exclamation mark, then you might just want to go set up Assistant and have a look what they're doing there. You might need to do, the other thing is make sure it's in 48K. So by doing that, you go project setup, 48K there, 48 kilohertz. You need to also make sure your audio interface is set to 48 kilohertz. That's different for every audio interface again. So if I just quickly show you mine, I use Audient, set up, sample rate 48 kilohertz. That can be a little bit of, oh, we're going to close it, there we go. That can be a little bit of a pain to change over if you're using something like 44.1 or whatever it is. But for Atmos you need that, so you'll probably have to switch over there. So we've got that, we've got the renderer there. Now what we do is go to Project, ADM Authoring Panel, and we start setting it up. First thing is we do, we click here and hit that. You should only have one if you've been following correctly. There shouldn't be more than one, or there shouldn't be none, because what that's doing is saying, hey look, the renderer is here, and now they're linking. Next thing we do is we go Atmos bed, which is already here. If it wasn't there, all we'd need to do is go add bed, click on that, and go input, and then Atmos bed, and that's automatically set up for you. That's the good thing about Cubase and Atmos. A lot of the things are set up fairly easily, but this method is going to show you how you can have control over it. So all that is doing is saying, hey look, this is the Atmos bed, go to the renderer and make it work, I suppose, in simple terms, because even I don't fully understand this. Now, another confusing thing about Atmos is what is the difference between a bed and an object, because they're the two things you're going to be dealing with in Atmos. And you can see here we've got our bed, and then you can see here we're going to be looking at objects and stuff like that. The way I think about a bed is either for things that aren't going to move, so fly around the room, because that's what a lot of Atmos is. Things aren't going to fly around the room. Your reverbs are going to be sent to the bed, or things that are going to be using the LFE or the subwoofer. So if you've got a big taiko hit or a big whooshy effect, you're going to send that to your bed. Ambience, any pads, things that are just going to take up space or not going to move around the room, that is going to be your bed. And the way we set up our bed, or we get our audio to the bed, is really just sending it in the stereo out. In the direct routing. So for this case, I'm just going to have all my rooms go to the bed. So Atmos bed, now all these selected ones are sent to the bed, and that's all you need to do to get things sent to the bed. You can use a group track. I'm just sending the audio for this. So if you want to route all these rooms to one stereo group, you can do that, and then have the stereo group go to the bed. That is all fine. So now, if I just solo the bed, you can hear it. And if I go to my app, I won't talk while playing it. If I go now to my Atmos out, you should see them pop up here. So this whole row is going to be used for our bed. So anything that's sent to the bed, you'll see it up there. We can now start panning these out and playing around with them and getting them all binaurally. So let's have a go of that. One thing I will say, these are just mono room mics. It's gonna sound a little bit weird, but just for the educational purpose of this video, I'm going to have a bit of fun with them and spread them out. So I've now got them spread out. All I've done is click on the track and go to the surround panner. If that's not there, click on the cog right down the bottom and hit surround pan, and then that way you can start moving different things around. So that's how you get the bed. It's a nice room sound. We are going to just have things sitting there and yeah, be spread out. We're not going to move these around and automate them to go around. We're just going to keep them there. The next thing I want to do is send our bass to the bed as well, just so I can show you how we can start getting an LFE in there. Now, I wouldn't do this with bass, but you know, if you want to have a little bit of sub, okay, maybe. So we've got our bass going to there. That is going to our bed. So what we need to do is open up our surround panner, click on it, and it'll bring up this nice window here. All we do, and I won't talk while playing, is just bring this up a little bit. And you can see the LFEs coming in. Now I wouldn't generally do that for a bass, but I'm just using this as a demo. So take it how you would please. And then you can pan the bass. I'm just going to keep it in the middle like it normally does. So that's how we do our bed. The next thing is we want to set up our objects. And objects can have a little bit more freedom with moving. You can pan them out a little bit better, well, not better, but differently. You can have them move a little bit more. It's not going to sound different if you move them in the bed. It's just more of a process thing. And especially when you take an ADM file and use it on different systems, because that's the whole point of Dolby. You can take this one file and have it go into hundreds of speakers or just come out of one speaker, and it down mixes it. So that's why we use objects a little bit more over beds. So the first thing I want to do before I actually start doing this is make sure these two are always on solo. So all I'm doing there is pressing Control and Alt on my keyboard and then clicking that button. And that means these are always going to play, because it can get messy with soloing and muting. I don't know why, but Dolby just does that. So just do that to keep it nice and simple. With objects, you want to make a object from a group track. You don't want to make your audio channels an object, because then you can't have sends going to objects. It can get a little bit messy with the effects and stuff like that. So please really just send all your audio to their own object and just do it that way. It is going to make life so much easier. So I'm going to quickly do that, and I'm going to come back now and show you what I've done. Cool. We've got now every single audio track that isn't routed to the bed into an object. So I've got a drum, sorry, they're not objects yet, group tracks. Just stereo group tracks for everything, and you can see here they're just stereo. We've got a left and right, and we can move them now around in our panner. The big thing that you need to do now is make sure all these groups and potential objects, well, they are going to be objects, are going to the Atmos out. Okay, you won't be able to hear anything yet from them because we haven't told our renderer, but they need to go to the Atmos out. So if that's starting to get a little bit confusing, don't overthink this yet, because it's not super complicated. All we're doing to get objects is sending the audio tracks to a group track. We're going to turn these group tracks into an object. Okay, next thing we do is select everything we want to be an object. So I've got 5 objects here, nice and simple. because we want to keep Atmos nice and simple. And we go, once we've selected them, we go up to here and then go functions and then go create object from selected track. It's going to do its magic, and now we see we have our different objects for our groups here, and they're all correctly routed. Okay, we've got drums going to drums, GT going to GT, Vooks, whoops, I was quickly typing to get it done, all routed properly. If you see something like no input, you've done something wrong, or maybe just go to source track and hit that. I'll admit I had to restart the video because I had these going to my stereo out. You need to make sure they're going to Atmos out before you make them into objects, or otherwise they won't show up. Okay, so we're almost there. We're really close. But while we've got this ADM authoring panel open, I just want to go over to the binaural side here and have a look at that. Every object will have a binaural option of off, near, mid, and far. Okay, Andrew Sheps, who is an amazing mixer, describes these as, think about them as 3 different rings of speakers around you. So your near ones are obviously near, your mid ones are over that going out, because we're thinking about a ring of speakers, and then the far ones are going further than that. So that's how you think about it. And if you were doing binaural down mixes of Atmos, then you really need to deal with this, or otherwise everything's just going to stay in the same ring. Okay, if you want that really binaural effect, which, you know, I think Atmos, that's what you should be doing with Atmos. You should be trying to make a really cool effect and have things pan differently and have that space. Mess with these binaural sounds. So I'm just going to make the drums far. You can do what you want. Guitar, we'll go mid, Vooks, near, piano mid, we'll go brass far. And that's just going to add extra space and extra room noise in this case here. So once we've got that set up, we can start playing around and really get some things happening in Atmos here. If I just play a drum, have a surround pan, I might push these to the back.
Ain't seen no loving since you've been gone.
I'm going to try something cool with the piano and just slightly tilt it just a little bit so it sounds like there's a piano there almost.
Joreen, Joreen, glad to see you back. Joreen, Joreen, glad to see you back. This time you stand, so please unpack. Joreen, Joreen,
So we can see here now in our renderer, we can see we've got all these objects taken up. If it's a stereo object, it's going to take 2. These are just mono channels. We've got heaps more. You got 128. So have fun with this. And we can see here, we've got our objects panned out, and you can see them light up when they play.
I'll never leave again. Joreen, Joreen.
Now, another cool thing as well, and one of the amazing things about Atmos, is you can start panning things up, because we've got, theoretically, those 4 speakers around us. So if I just solo the piano, I can start raising things just a little bit. So that's just creating more space and a sense of height. Obviously binaural headphones aren't going to do it justice compared to being in an Atmos room, but it's still pretty cool to start playing around with it. And you could even do it for something like brass. So there you have it, guys. There's a fairly easy way to deal with Atmos and Cubase. It can get a little bit tricky and fiddly But once you start getting into it and having a play around, it becomes a little bit easier, and really just practicing and getting those concepts nailed and remembering how to do them. If you have any questions, leave a comment or send me an email, and thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you again later.